I think probably the most underreported story since May has been Mitch McConnell trying to block first the HEROES Act, and then, the Democrats came back and said, okay, $3 trillion is too much for you. How about $2 trillion? And there was another piece of legislation. I'm not sure it ever had a name, but it was like the, how's this act? And he has refused to even allow either of these pieces of legislation to even be discussed on the floor of the Senate. And, now we're talking about maybe there's a compromise that we can blah-de-blah-de-blah. But what nobody seems to be talking about is that Mitch McConnell has been holding your health and your economic welfare, if you're one of the 20 million Americans who have lost your job, or the 10 million Americans who have lost your health care, or the probably 30 or 40 million Americans who've seen, your economic fortunes diminish substantially over the last little less than a year, 9 months or so, that Mitch McConnell is holding this hostage in exchange for a limit on corporate liability, an end essentially to corporate liability. We've got for-profit corporations that have lied to their workers. We know this now. I mean, specifically some of these meatpacking plants that hire a lot of workers who don't speak English, literally lying to their workers in foreign languages, in Spanish or in other languages. We have, again, it was the meatpacking plants, but this goes way beyond them. Having executives start an office pool, a lottery, or a pool essentially, a betting pool, on which of their employees are going to die first from COVID. Oh yeah, I'm going to bet on Ralph. He's about 100 pounds overweight. Well, I think Marge is going to be the one who's going to die. She's got diabetes, And well, what about George? He's got heart disease. I'll put $25 on George. I mean, they're literally doing that. You've got warehouse operations around you've got all kinds of operations around the country where the employers are basically just saying to their employees, put your life at risk or you're fired. And, I'm not going to accommodate you. I'm not going to give you PPE. We're not going to change the way the workplace is organized to make it safer or less likely for you to contract this deadly disease. And by the way, most of the consequence of getting COVID-19 is not that you die. That happens mostly to people, over 60 and in poor health, or younger people who are really seriously obese or have diabetes or heart disease or severe asthma, things like that. Immune disorders, cancer, chemo. These are the really vulnerable populations. But And when you look at the numbers right now, here in Oregon, every night they publish the numbers and they break the diagnoses, how many people were diagnosed, into categories. 0 to 20 years old, 20 to 30 years old, 30 to 40 years old, 40 to 50 years old, like that. And what I'm seeing here in Oregon is between 20 and 40. Those two decades, those two 10-year slices are the ones that are exploding. And these are the people who are getting strokes, who are having permanent heart damage, who are experiencing kidney failure, and they're going to be on dialysis for the rest of their lives, who are experiencing dementia that in all probability will never go away, who are getting chronic fatigue syndrome that may well be with them for the rest of their lives. And it's not a small percentage. It's not the 1 or 2% of the people who are dying, or maybe as much as 4 or 5% if you're looking at the whole population, although that's dropped somewhat, with better understanding that we can use steroids and things like that. So maybe it's down to 2 or 3%, but it's not that. We're talking, 80%. This was a study that was done at the University of California on a sports team. 80% of the people of the athletes who got this have permanent heart damage now. It's breathtaking. What's called morbidity as opposed to mortality, the sickness as opposed to death that's coming from this disease. And in many cases, people are getting it because their employers are forcing them into situations where they're exposed to it and refusing to provide them with the stuff that they need to avoid getting sick. And then, the flip side of that is companies who are inflicting this on their customers, who are not reorganizing or rearranging their stores, who aren't requiring their employees to wear masks so they don't expose their customers, or are not reorganizing the movement through stores, along in a particular kind of one-way route. So as a result, people are passing each other with a foot or so of clearance and spreading the virus from customer to customer. So all this is going on, and Mitch McConnell is saying, I'm not going to give any money to the average American. There's been the Democrats in the House and a few Republicans back in May passed legislation that would have given everybody $600 a week right until today. In fact, it extends into next year. And that would have funded state and local governments. Mitch McConnell is cutting off funds to police and fire departments. And this has been going on since May. The money is running out now. Well, the money ran out back, 3 months ago for unemployed people. And all the protections and eviction protections and it all ends at the end of this year, which is 2 weeks away, more or less. And what does McConnell want in exchange for allowing Americans to lift their heads a little bit above water and take a gasp of financial air? He wants an absolute and utter shield of liability for these corporations and their executives. And this is just the beginning, by the way, because once he gets this for COVID, all it'll take is a little tweak of the law to extend that to everything, which the Republicans are going to be pushing through the next time they have the ability. So why isn't this the top story in the media? In the corporate media? Could it be that those are the same corporations who would just assume they don't get sued by their employees? Just let that sink in for a minute. It is absolutely time to raise hell.